Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight live, and for those of you who are watching this on catch up. Tonight we have special guest Owen Lewis, absolutely phenomenal person that I can't wait for our Q&A session with. Finding the Why is a podcast set up by artists Sarah Hardy and Kirstie Tebbs, hosted by the Tebbs Gallery. And it's to combat elitism that is within the art world, from bananss duct tape to a wall to just pretty much everything that is art news and that we want to discuss. As you could tell, I do not have my notes in front of me because I have somehow wiped a couple of my files. So we are freestyling it. How's your week been, Sarah?
My week's been good. I've done a couple of submissions for photographic things because I can't speak either. And yeah, I actually one really good thing I did was I tuned into Hazel Soane's live watercolor demonstration. And as you know, she's quite a prolific wildlife artist, working with David Shepherd. And that was just magical, just seeing her talk about her work and, you know, her time spent out in the bush and the experiences around the animals in Africa. And, you know, you all know how I feel about Africa. So, but yeah, it was amazing. I think it's going to be on catch up somewhere. So do look out for it. It's well worth a watch, as they pick up lots of hints and tips from her and working kind of, you know, in the field. So yeah, how about you?
My week has been absolutely crazy, to be honest. It's almost the deadline to the Petri dish project for people to get their artworks back to me. I've got half of the swatches project sent back to me, but digitally and physically. So I've been getting them all onto the system. And liaising with the landlord ready for the pop-up exhibition for the Petri dish project. So it's been a bit of a full-on week. Oh, and finishing the pot from last week, which had a major disaster, which you will all see later on. Yeah. How's your week been, Owen?
It's been not quite as eventful as either of yours, I do have to admit. I'm currently just slap bang in the middle of moving house, so I'm either moving or sleeping currently at the moment. But it's been good. I think a lot for me this week has been with stuff reopening. The theatre group that I run and work with, if we're now back to performing live. It's just so lovely after so long to spend this week back with people and just kind of like over in pub gardens or back in just in slap bang in the middle of fields. It's been such a lovely week just to be back with people.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I can understand it. So I mean, yeah, and it's this connection, this being with people is so important, and like after such absences, it's just so nice to be able to go out and kind of hug, well, mindfully hug people and have conversations, not just on Zoom, I think.
It's true, and being able to see family that we just haven't been able to see for 18 months. I actually recently saw some of mine, and it's been much needed. I mean, so much has changed. You're just sitting there for an hour trying to just catch up on like almost 2 years worth of information. But yeah, no, it must be absolutely phenomenal to be able to have a live audience again. Right, so buttons again. Right, so our first article that we have seen this week was the way that Tebbs Gallery has been dealing with homophobia. So this image that you can see is the Come Out poster, which is worth $15,000 by Peter Hajar's collection. And this image seems to have brought out a lot of homophobia on Instagram, where there's just been some horrendous comments, and the Tebbs Gallery have been amazing with how they have dealt with it. They're basically saying everyone's entitled to their opinions, but that type of opinion is not welcome, which in today's society, if you saw these comments online, it hits you hard, because how is this still happening? We have progressed, but it's just shown we have not progressed enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of, hats off to them for not censoring anything either, and having the balls to stand up for what they believe in, and kind of up for other people as well. I think there's so many people who just cower in the corner and just kind of go, okay, maybe maybe we shouldn't do this, or and just be too tentative about it. But yeah, hats off to them. And I see that they're actually they're going to open a digital show in London as well. So it's going to be part of the Cruising Utopia exhibition.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, that's good. And it's true with them not shying away from it, because why should they? You'd see most people, they'll be silently deleting all of these comments. But what the gallery is doing is saying, we've seen that comment. Everyone here has seen that comment. So we are going to reply to it in the most polite but responsible way possible so that everyone else can see it. Owen, and I said, have you seen much about this?
Yeah, I think there's so many things that have actually struck me about this story. I think one of the first things for me is obviously just how important as an art piece those photographs are, especially with these photographs, and the images is first of all, it's pre-AIDS, so, and very much just pre. That it was just before this big epidemic that really changed a lot of how the media and how the viewpoints towards that community was. And also, a large part about this set of photographs is also a bit on the importance of the location. Is actually these photographs were mainly taken around the Christopher Street Pier area in New York, which is the same area that a couple of years after photos is where the first Pride March happened on Christopher Street. So actually, as a photo, as just a piece of work, it's such an important piece and actually shows so much. But I think for me, what part of it shows, and going back to where they have kept those posts up that people are commenting on, is it's such an unfortunate thing this year, from where I do a lot of work with organizations just around holding conversations and just this type of work, is we've seen quite an increase of social media just discourse around Pride Month, of course being June, and a lot more than we have over the last couple of years actually. And whether it can be suggested whether it's because so many people are online, there's so many reasons, but one of the things that really highlights with how people have responded to this is there's not been that much difference to how people reacted when this first came out to how people are reacting to it now. It's just people are reacting to it on the different platform. When this piece of work first came out, there was those responses there that people were a bit like, we're not quite comfortable with this. And we're seeing the same thing now. And it's the same thing that Tebbs Gallery in this story, is that people are going, yeah, we're not quite comfortable with this. But as wonderful as social media is, it's given that new platform to hold those. I think, as we were saying, it's wonderful. Well, I believe it's wonderful how Tebbs Gallery has responded to it. Is it's going, this opinion is still here. This is being publicly viewed, but we're not going to stand for this. This isn't what the artist would have stood for. This is the point of that piece. And I think it's been such a great way how they've promoted their response. That's my little rant about it.
No, it's interesting because it's so important to get into history of the artworks as well. And it's just so true. It's just shown that there is still a lot of mentality from what it was back then when it was created to what it was now. So whether we actually thought we had progressed, it actually shows that people really are coming out the woodworks that they may not have. And one of the things this just reminds me of is in Poland, where they've got a anti-LGBTQ plus area that has now lost funding, and it's one of 100 places in Europe that have actually banned people from that community from being into it. It's kind of ridiculous. It's my way to put it.
No, it is.
Sorry.
I apologize. I seem to have got that. I've got a black screen. Is that the same from your end?
Yeah, it
you
looks
seem to
it.
have disappeared.
One thought I'm just going to carry on speaking and trying to solve this at the same time.
At least we can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear. That's either wonderful. There we are.
There we go.
Fortunate or unfortunate. Yeah, I've completely lost where I was. Yes, Poland. And it is that thing that part of this is really highlight is almost. I think one of the first things you were saying, Kirstie, is around how far we have come, but how far we still got to go. That to me, these photos. I mean, as a gay person myself, it strikes to me just that where we have come from and how much has happened in that piece of time, but just that we're not, that those feelings, that things we're still going against isn't gone, is still there. But at the heart of what we do as a community is that word, it is the community. It's the pride, it's the love, it's what we share amongst each other. And that, yes, from then and now, there's been those negative comments, but actually at the heart is that community that we share together. And sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I've totally forgot what I was going to say, but what I'll follow what you've just set up with is, it's just such a shame that people choose to pick up on the differences rather than the commonalities. And yeah, it's the love and the kind of the things that we all need, really, that bring us all together, that they choose to ignore. And it's always about this segregation, and it's really just people get on with your own lives, do what makes you happy, don't harm anybody, and be who you want to be, love who you want to love, and let's all live happily ever after. It should really be that simple, really, if you boil it right down to it. But
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, but I think it raises a really interesting idea on how do we tackle those comments. That, I mean, as long as there's been art, there's been critics, and actually when there is so much online, and we are seeing so much of that online, is how do we tackle those conversations? Is when it moves beyond that bit of, yeah, I don't quite like that piece of art, but when that piece of critique starts to go against a group of people, and it starts to actually attack those who the art is representing. How is it that we hold those conversations? How much do we allow critique and an open conversation about art? And to what point does it then become actually almost that realm of the just hate? It can move into hate. It can move into not being productive.
It's very true.
I don't have an answer to that, but I just think it just provides a really interesting question.
It's really important to think about, because the line is just so blurred.
And I think there will always be those who just aren't reasonably open to debate, just because that's how they are, that's how they've been brought up, or that's kind of, they've just got some, in some cases people get defensive because they can identify all too strongly, and they don't want to be able to, because they feel they will be attacked too. But I know there's like a number of reasons behind every behavior, but it's just so sad that people, some people have lost the ability to just be accepting and be able to talk quite openly.
It's true. And then our next article, I'll throw over to Sarah.
Yeah, this is quite a contrast, because we're on a different continent again. So this is Leila Babire. Yes. Babire, I think. Babire's. Yeah. I'll untangle my tongue. So basically, she was in a position where she studied art in her native Uganda, and she used to hang out with a lot of the other students from the college, the university, and they used to go out and they used to go to various concerts and such, but they wear masks, traditional kind of African masks while they were there, and it was almost like concealing their identity. And she realized that this actually took on a very different meaning. It wasn't just like this traditional way that they were wearing them, but they were actually concealing like who they were, who they identified as. And she was basically outed in the press, and she basically fled to the States. She was assisted by some human rights activists and fellow artists who funded her flight to New York. And there she kind of, I suppose, she started to come into her own, and she was allowed that freedom of expression to produce the kind of art that she wanted to. And a lot of it is based on the masks, the African masks, but she doesn't just work in wood, she works in ceramic and stone and found objects. And she's used a blowtorch because she realized at one point that she was kind of almost disfiguring the face of the masks, but in that had its own beauty as well. So yeah, she's currently kind of got her studio in Brooklyn, and she's also building up to her first European tour as well. So you know, it's been a very rough and rocky start for her, but hopefully there are good things to come, and she is certainly, you know, a leading light and a shining example of how you know, how things can work out. Obviously she's lucky that she got out of Uganda and she was assisted in that way, but you know, when you think a lot of this intolerance of the way people identify and kind of, you know, yeah, gender identity and stuff, it's all come from colonialization, which was brought into the countries. And post that, it was quite normal for people to have same-sex relationships, same-sex marriages and stuff. As I say, when, you know, when people like, I think the next article we go on to speak about, we'll go into this further, but it's amazing how things changed after that colonialization.
It's true. And reading this article, it started off, I thought it was horrific with her, like to actually have to flee your home country to be able to be who you are, to be able to do the career that you want to do in the way that you want to do it and understand yourself further. God, it's got to be so hard and difficult, and she has so much strength to be able to do that, because you got to think she's not just left her home country, she's left her friends and family all behind in another country and starting fresh in a place she doesn't know, completely different culture. And further reading down, I realized this article is an absolute celebration of what she has managed to do and how her strength to be able to go, I am queer, I am an artist, I'm going to be doing what I need to do, and even if that means going somewhere else, I will go somewhere else and be who I am and be able to share it with the world, because her sculptures are incredibly fascinating. If anyone watched, if you haven't seen them, I would so recommend look at them, because they're so embedded with her history, whether or not she's meant for it to happen. And yeah, I give absolute props to her. She's incredibly strong.
No, I mean, I think for me, when I started reading the article, it really flashed back to me during the times I was over in Uganda in 2014 and 2017. And I remember both times, one of the first things I was told when just being there and working in the country was not to talk about my sexuality. That it was just that is the card on the table. Do not mention it. And I was fortunate and in a privileged position that it was the case I could go, well, okay, I'm here for 2 months. I can just for 2 months not mention it. I can just crack on with my work. But I can't even imagine living with that being your day to day. I know from the story again is where they fled the country in 2015. But actually, so we're now 6 years on, and the laws in the country are still the same.
Yeah.
It's actually those situations are still going on. And I think the sentence that really struck me from the article was where it's now being able to revisit a history in which people like her are accepted rather than persecuted. And it's, I think, as Sarah was saying, so much of that has boiled down to colonialism. I can't speak today. And actually how much impact that has had. And how, I mean, colonialism itself is the story on which we could have its own 3-hour podcast. But how much has been lost from that is how much culture, how much story, how much passion, the creativity, the arts, and the people that was there and has been lost. And we seem to have this really interesting view as a country around just that topic, is that the British Empire is our story. But actually, throughout the entire world, there's its own story. That there's so many different stories around it, depending on where you go. And we seem to, sometimes as a country, have a really hard time seeing that. That we kind of go and see, well, this is our story, this is how it was, hallelujah. And actually, when we start to deep dive into this, it seems to be almost uncomfortable for some people to actually go, well, actually, that it's not just this black and white story, that it's had so much impact. But I mean, the work itself, as you were saying, Kirstie, it's so influential, and it's amazing the work they're doing. Is when you look at it, you can just see the passion and almost just the history you can learn from it, where focus is a lot around the Queen Mothers. And for me as well, the representation and how the models are put together. So where all of the models are using trash from the streets of New York, which represents that the word, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, so I will move on. But that translates to what they're called in their country, which is trash in their local language. That actually she's picked up that word and almost reclaimed it into the art. And from understanding that, it just threw so much actually what's at the heart of this. And I'm just really excited to see my camera's having a moment today. It just makes me really excited to see what's going to come next.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. And a little point to add into that, even down to the fact that she blowtorched some of them, it's one of the more horrific sides of being queer in some countries, where you are literally could be as bad as set on fire just for your own sexual orientation. And to see that she's using it in her artwork is just another form of strength, and her claiming that and using it into her art and putting it in front of people is just fantastic. And that does lead us on very well on the theme of colonialism on to our next one, which is entitled Two Spirits, One Heart and Five Genders. In colonialism, we erased history and wrote it as our own. In the Indian tribes, same-sex couples weren't just accepted, they were celebrated. You were literally just two souls bound together. You were special, and there was a reason you were there. And the photos that you see on the screen right now are some of the more prominent homosexual people in the same tribes around Indian tribes. And I would highly recommend to go to the link on the screen, which I will put in the YouTube comments and the podcast comments, because it's just so packed with this wonderful history of celebration and love and everything in between, and how hard colonialism really hit, especially tribes like that, putting our prudeness and censorship onto things. And yes, we've come so far from 50 years ago, but we look all the way back here and we go, no, we have not come far. We have not come far, because it's still not 100% accepted.
Yeah, I think having spoken to you during the week about it, it is one of these articles that has just really touched both of our hearts. And it just seems like such a beautiful, peaceful way of being. It's like the two spirits, five genders, and you know, you're held in high esteem for being unique and being special, as everybody should be. And it, you know, I think people within the tribes, they were kind of very often shamans, mystics. They would adopt children. They would be big figures in the community, and they'd be judged on their contribution, not basically on their gender persuasion, which, you know, is as it should be. It's not rocket science at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's just such an interesting and challenging topic, because I think for me, just speaking as someone who's non-binary, is gender identity seems to be one of the areas we're just still stuck on. That throughout, the more you look back throughout history and at different civilizations and just different communities, there's always been some level of just different gender expression, different gender identity. And that was just part of the culture. That it really seems to be, is now, it's the last century, that we've kind of started to build this issue around it. And even, I think one thing that the article points out is that the term, the idea of two-spirit, focuses primarily on one, is the term that one tribe uses. But actually multiple tribes across what we now see as the United States have their own terms, their own definitions for it. That actually, it was almost a universal thing for them. And it was that people were seen as creative, that people were seen as almost enlightened, and that certain level of self-reflection. And I'm not trying to promote that those of us who are non-binary are better, or that we have those special unlimited powers. But it's a lot about just how we see it, and how much of it it was the norm. It's just, it was part of society. It's what was accepted. I don't really have much. I don't feel I have anything more to say than it's a shame. That it's something that was lost. It's something that was damaged by people who had no care. That there was no care for those people. There was no care for that culture. And that's something we still seem to have at some parts of our conversations today. That the beliefs that went over to the Americas with this is our culture, this is how we do things, this is how you're going to do things. And that still seems to be at the heart of some of our conversations today. But hopefully, through these more conversations and through talking about stuff like the wonderful two-spirit, actually there's more people gaining an understanding of what that was and how that looks in the world today.
Yes, I completely agree, and it's why it's just so important for even podcasts that are there to have a bit of fun to discuss such serious topics, because we've come far, but you look back and I think you're right. I think the word is shame. You just is such a shame that it's been lost, because there's no reason for it. It's all because a couple of people went over and said, no, that's not our way. So you go to our way and you live. Put simply, which is just mind-boggling in nowadays. But going back, if putting your mindset back there, it was the norm. It was what it was. You're not colonial. Okay, cool. You're gonna be colonial. And yeah. So thank you for that, Owen. It's so good to be able to get
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to just come into the fun and go, hi, serious topics.
Yeah. No, it's so important to get someone on who's obviously living in LGBTQ plus society, but also I am saying that right, aren't I? LGBTQ plus. Okay. But also someone who just can bring a little bit of understanding to two very straight people who aren't really that a part of the community but are very open-minded. So, and I think that's a very good thing. And I think one of the main things is I want to ask, as living in this new age where we have progressed, has your sexual identity, your non-binaryism, and your sexual orientation come in the way of your opportunities?
Sorry, it took me a moment to understand the question.
It was a bit long-winded.
Yeah, so it's whether my gender and sexual orientation has got in the way of me doing
doing
stuff.
the stuff that you're doing.
My brain just went to, so it was like, I've been very fortunate that whilst I face my own barriers in terms of who has accepted, who hasn't, I've been quite fortunate that it's not been too bad. I think one of the things I'm very lucky with is actually I pass quite well, which I don't really massively see as a positive thing. But compared to some people who actually people automatically see them and can judge and sense that and automatically make those presumptions. Whilst I'm quite lucky in that I'm a posh sounding white tall person. But no, I've never had it get in the way of me getting to opportunities, but I've definitely had interesting comments. It reminds me of a couple of years ago, I was doing a workshop at the Lincolnshire Suicide Prevention Conference. And it'd been a great day, gone through it all. And I'd opened it as just kind of going, well, I'm a non-binary person, I'm engaged to a guy, and just talking about just who I was, just to kind of understand that ground level. I had someone come up to me afterwards who, for about, it felt like 15 minutes, but I'm sure it was probably about 2. Just very rapid fire, was very inquisitive, kind of like about what does non-binary mean? I'm just trying to persuade children. I'm just trying to confuse people's minds, and actually I'm taking stuff away. And I kind of left there, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to cry. I'm quite a soft soul. And I walked away kind of going, well, that's how it was, that's how it must, this is what I'm going to come across. And the more I kind of like just carried on walking, I realized that that person was there to be like that. That actually the questions I was being asked wasn't there for me to answer. It was just for them to be thrown at me. And as almost the first two stories we looked at today, is I'm quite used to getting the odd Twitter notification or Twitter message whenever talking about issues like that, who are very happy to tell me how they think about the LGBTQ plus community. And apart from a quick block and a potential report, there's nothing else to be done about that. So no, I'm not a stranger to it, as is probably the story for almost anyone and many people within the community. But no, I know that I'm very lucky that actually my opportunities haven't been that dismissed. Yes, that was a very long-winded question to your answer. Very long-winded answer to your question. English, I'm now going to try and speak it for the rest of this podcast.
We all have a moment.
Yes, I have many moments.
It's because you're on this podcast that you can't talk.
I know.
And I'd actually love to hear a bit more about the humanitarian stuff you've done. You've been to all around Europe doing workshops on gender, sexual orientation, race, disability. You've been to Uganda twice to help with the school and education. And the Sudanese refuge. You've done so much for the community. I would say I'd love to know more, but actually there's a lot for that. So let's go with, how did you come about starting doing your humanitarianism?
It genuinely came about because I knew there was stuff to be done, and I knew I was in a position that I could do something about it. Not that I was like, I'm going to solve the world crisis, but I knew I was in a position that I could help do something about it. That's the better words. So I think I got involved with various stuff when I was much younger. But it was the first time when I went to Uganda in 2014 or 12. I can't remember dates. Is what really kicked it in for me, and that was with a youth group. So it was with about five other people that went with, and most of us were only about 14, 15 at that point, and that was working at the heart with the rural community in the northwest of Uganda. And as was saying, that was getting involved with work with local schools, working with the local community. I got involved with doing some work with the TB wards in hospitals, and spending that time in the refugee camps in South Sudan, and working very close hands with them. And what has always been my catalyst, really, was working. It was when I was working in the hospital in Uganda. I say working, I was being 15, it was a volunteering, helping around. And just being in the ward, walking around, and just having a chat with a young boy who was in a bed, and again, I think chat's probably a long way of it. There was quite a lot of language barriers. He wasn't well himself, very clearly. But there was just some bit of fun, connection, and a smile. It's a smile that lingers with me. And it was turning around to have a bit of a chat with somebody else, to turning back around and finding out that boy had unfortunately died. And that has always been quite catalyst in my heart, predominantly for that smile. That it was, we were in like 45 degree heat in a Uganda hospital with barely any equipment, on the edge of the final breaths, and the smile. And that is really what's kept me going. And so it's from then is how much is just for me is knowing I'm in the fortunate position that I've got time that I can sometimes give, and if I can help fundraise for stuff, then I will. So from then, after Uganda, is helped just get involved with, again, various stuff that I could. And I went back in 2017 because I was aware of a school project that was looking for volunteers, looking for help, primarily on the kind of like drama and performance side. And that was what I was studying, and it's what I've got skills and experience with. So I went over and helped over there. And again, just some of the same experiences of just people who we would classify as having nothing, but to some of them, they have everything. And that it was just such a mind-opening realization. And then, yeah, so since about 2017, a lot of my work has come around and focusing on the terms of gender and sexuality. And I touched on that during my second time in Uganda. And that came about primarily as it was a passion of mine, having grown up as a gay youth and then came to understand my own gender expression. And I'd had my own experiences growing up, positive and negative. And I started my own work primarily because I was sat in a training workshop and I was bored because I was about 2 hours into a PowerPoint. And I was just sat in a warm office in London going, I'm bored. And I came up with essentially the 3 things that I use at the heart of anything I do, which is around dialogue, collaboration, and play. That some of the best ways we can create change, if we can just start to see that moving forward, is by having conversations and through having dialogue and talking about them. But that has to be done together. It can't just be here's all the information, good luck. It's actually, we've got to work together. It's coming back to the idea around community and play, because I get bored easily. And I just think we learn so much better through having fun, through actually experiencing things. And so from that, I'm just a professional talker. I see who's happy to listen. And as you're saying, I've been able to work across England, into Netherlands, from nursery age up to working with people who've retired. And just, to me, my work is just about how do we have these conversations? How do we talk about that? How do we share our experiences and what do we learn from them? And so I'm now director of Creative Rebel, based up in Lincoln. And sorry, I may be moving on to another question, Kirstie, I apologise. But essentially that's the work that we do. Our whole work is about how do we facilitate these conversations? Whether that's from working with schools, to we run the local TEDx program, from working with community kitchens, to working within schools to create creative hubs, is how do we make change with those 3 ideas in mind, about through talking, through collaborating together, and through having fun whilst doing it. And that's me.
That's phenomenal. Sarah, do you have a question for him?
I was just going to say, I listened to your TEDx speech, and I was blown away. It was really, really powerful. It kind of sounds like something I'd say, actually, but not that. But apologising is what I meant. Anyway, and what caught me was, it's not all about shouting to make yourself heard. In fact, I kind of picked up on a Greta Thunberg quote, and it's like, sometimes a whisper is so much more powerful than a shout. And you were talking about how can I help, what skills have I got that I can use to get my message out there, and you were talking about art and chatting and music, IT skills, and everybody has a strength. Everybody has skills, and it's just about kind of utilizing them or optimizing them in the best way, I guess. But yeah, it was just incredible, and kind of relaying your experiences of Uganda and the little boy Tom, who passed away. And I could see how much it touched you. Really, it's I started to fill up as well. I have to say, I haven't quite had them experiences within hospitals, but I do know when you go out to countries like that, it's a whole different ball game. And you come back and you look at everything else around you completely differently. So yeah, I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible, and the fact that you're able to kind of encompass the areas that you feel really passionate about, such as, sexuality and disability and race. And it's just, this is what the world needs more of. We need to have more conversations that aren't so uncomfortable. And one of the ways that kind of we're much more receptive is by making it fun, having that emotional connection as well, I think. So yeah, well done. It's amazing.
Thank you. I think is almost exactly as you were saying, that I was saying. Is we seen when we talk about creating change, there's so many times that it seems our expectation, or what we think that must be, is the person standing at the plinth with a loud voice shouting about how things should be. Which, if that is your style, that's wonderful, good for you. But actually, that's not how everyone works. And I've met so many people that actually that's not them, and that's put them off doing anything or something. And there's so much power in just however we can express. And I think to me, that's also part of it, that just that idea of creating change can sometimes just feel quite overwhelming. That actually, to me, in my mind, creating change can be as simple as being who you are. That if it's just creating art, if it is, I'm going to focus on art because it's part of what we're doing. But if it's that idea of creating art, it's the idea of sharing stories. That's creating change. That's being who you are. It's starting to spread those type of conversations. That's so powerful. Even just probably a quick sketch that you've spent 10 minutes on. That's sharing something into the world. That's starting to share a bit of positivity in there. And when you start to get more people doing that, well, that's a wonderful collection. And so I think that our whole idea of creation is, again, so often feels daunting. It feels like something that's going to take up so much of our time, that actually we've all got something we can do. And whether it is just as simple as creating that 10-minute sketch and sharing it, or just having a chat with someone, there's so much we can just do on our own levels.
I mean, so true. Just you speaking, it hits hard. That it really is. We all just need to sit down and chat. Shouting doesn't always help. I don't think it's ever helped an angry situation. So how is it going to help a passionate situation? But yeah, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us and being here tonight.
Thank you for listening.
Well, you definitely have two people listening to you. So we're going to move on to last week for our mini challenge at the end. Me and Sarah made pots. Now I am a big believer in saving the best till last, so Sarah can go first. And it's funny because Sarah hasn't seen mine yet.
You haven't seen mine yet either. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm strapped in.
I've even got a little clip because Goodness, I hope it's not going to fall off. Right, this screen may disguise it, so we may need to play around with the angle, but there we go.
There we go.
Nice.
It's an elephant.
Oh, wow.
It almost wasn't. Yes, so, and I have a little box as well that I keep on my mantelpiece, and I truly believe that. So yeah. So yeah, that's my elephant. You know how much I love them.
That's
So come on,
fantastic.
Kirstie.
Well, a very poignant piece about the near extinction of the elephant there.
Well,
It wouldn't just be the eyebrows. It would be the whole face, the whole trunk.
so mine is the absolute opposite of Sarah's. A bit of backstory. I hated what I did last week. I sanded off all the details quick. Thought, oh, I can finish it off quickly. And ended up crying for about an hour how bad it was. And I have just accepted what I have done because there's nothing else I could do for it. So I've got the nose has fallen off this morning. But if I put it there, I went for an animal theme. Can you guess the animal?
Is it a reindeer?
No. It's a cat.
Oh, it's still a cat.
It's still a cat.
Okay.
But that's my failure.
It's a rhino, wasn't it?
Yeah. And what makes that really impressive is that I am a sculptor and ceramics is part of my practice.
Oh, you?
Yeah. So if you want me to ever want to commission me for a awful pot, I will make you one. And this week we have the honor of Owen joining us for it. Which I'm going to ask you, and knowing full well I haven't got myself ready. Have you got a pen and a paper? There we go. Organised. You just see both of us just like off screen. So like usual, I say like usual, we've got the roulette wheel, which we'll spin, handmade by yours truly, has only broken twice in 7 episodes. With loads of different challenges. So let's I can't spin it being right behind it. There we go. And it worked. So this week is upside down. So we'll be drawing it upside down, spin the paper around at the end and see what we have created. Sarah looks panicked.
Yeah, there's a reason I stick to performances.
Can I not just write about it? I'll just.
So I'll just show my pot upside down.
I'll take a photograph. What do you want us to draw, Kirstie? What would you like us to draw?
It depends. How crazy do you want to go?
I could do an upside down circle.
Okay, we'll do an upside down lizard. There we go. Sarah, have you got music for 2 minutes? If anyone at home wants to join in, make sure to send it to us, tag us in it, share it to us, whatever you want to do, and we will reshare it, and we definitely will comment on it.
For the music?
We're ready.
So today we have Prince's You Got the Look.
very, very could have been wrong. Your drawing of your lizard.
Not a euphemism.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to get an art commission.
I love it.
Come on, Kirstie, then.
My turn now.
Yes.
So this is mine.
Oh, that's cute.
I kept it in the theme of Prince, gave it a mohawk.
Nice.
And it's looking a nice lolly because it's a hot day. I also did a little sketch of what a lizard looked like at the start because I forgot.
Okay, so here's my upside down lizard. Oh my god. Back a bit. You might see it.
Oh, there.
So there's
It's headless.
And
There we go. Oh,
almost. It's a case of angling these things, I think.
there we go.
Upside down.
I like the stripes.
Tails.
Oh, fantastic.
Much fun.
I think we all succeeded there.
I think we all need to give ourselves a big pat on the back.
Shall we switch off the music now? Oh, it's gone. No.
There you go.
Ah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Owen, for being with us. I mean, you've brought knowledge and a lot more stuff for us to think about with these sorts of issues, from a standpoint we may never have thought of before. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lovely evening, and I shall cherish my picture of a lizard.
It's been amazing to have you, and thank you so much for sharing, Owen.
Yes.
It's been wonderful. It's been great.
And
And for your drawing.
Yes.
We'll have it in our art gallery online, so
Start my new career.
Exactly. You'd be the artist. So thank you so much for everyone who's come here and watched live, and thank you so much to everyone who is watching this on repeat. And well, what more can we say is have a happy Pride Month and a happy Father's Day this weekend. So we'll all be seeing you soon, and we'll be back next week. Not Owen though, just us two,
No.
sadly.
sorry.
I'll be in the audience.
Yeah, there we go. Right, we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
Bye.